So it's no secret that, for a while now, Gren Maju isn't actually always the win condition for Gren Maju decks. Between kaijus removing threats on your opponent's side of the field, dangers summoning themselves and picking apart your opponent's board, and then overlaying into Draglubion in order to OTK was more than enough damage, our little lobster boy doesn't always get the love it deserves. But what can you do? Being a level 3 Fire Fiend? There aren't really many ways of searching it. Or at least, not without its effects being negated, which of course defeats the point. I mean, you could try to use Horse Prince, but let's not do that. So besides playing your Allure of Darknesses, your Pots of Desires, and your trade-ins, if you don't draw it, well, too bad. But what if I told you you could search it? Enter Burst of Destiny with Small World. Besides confusing new players and causing more people to ask what it does than Pot of Greed, this card basically lets you search, well, anything. Just so that we're all on the same page about this card, to explain it in the simplest terms possible, here's how it works. Banish a monster from your hand, then banish a monster in your deck that has one thing in common out of its attack, defense, type, attribute, or level. So if you reveal a dark attribute monster, you can then banish another dark monster only if it has different level, type, attack, and defense to the first one. With me so far? Well, you then get to add a third monster to your hand, with the same restrictions as when you were choosing which one to banish, but this time, you forget the first monster and only look at the second one. So if you're searching, for example, Frog the Jam, the second monster needs to have no more and no less than one thing in common with it. Okay, so you need to start with the right hand for it to work then, right? Well, that's the beauty of this deck. You see, after having just explained everything like that, we then throw it all out of the window when it comes to monsters with question mark attack. Because of some strange rulings, question mark attack isn't equal to any number of attack, even itself. Hey, it wouldn't be Yu-Gi-Oh! If you didn't need a master's degree in rulings just to play it. What this actually means is that Eater of Millions, an already useful card in Gren Maju decks, gets even better. Despite sharing the Fiend type with Gren Maju, along with them both having question mark attack and defense, it still works as a bridge between the two with Small World's effect. And, being a Dark Level 1 Fiend, it has exactly enough in common with almost every other monster in your deck to mean that no matter what you banish, you'll always be able to banish an Eater of Millions as the second monster and search Gren Maju. But why stop there? Thanks to Eater of Millions, the same logic also applies to pretty much every other card in your deck. So you can search your Gizmex, your Dangers, hell, even a Necroface if you really want to. So, combining it with the deck's amazing draw engine, you're now incredibly likely to get to your Gren Maju, and so, with the rest of the deck being optimised to banish as much and as often as possible, you'll then be able to simply normal summon an incredibly powerful lobster and swing for game. Onto the deck profile. First off, the core of the deck was 3 Gren Maju, Eater of Millions, and Small World. Gren Maju, of course, being your win condition, and Small World being its searcher thanks to Eater of Millions. By itself, Eater of Millions is also a great card to actually summon. You can just dump your entire extra deck, which is a lot less important now that you'll have access to Gren Maju almost every time, giving you access to decent removal as well as boosting your lobster by 6000 attack. We then have our level 8s with 3 Thunderbird, 3 Bigfoot, and 3 Gizmekorotchi. For the dangers, you can discard them to either destroy something or summon a big beat stick to help ATK even more securely. They even draw you a card if they summon themselves. Gizmekorotchi allows you to summon it by banishing 8 off the top of your deck, and on a turn where you didn't use that effect, you can also banish 3 from your extra deck to destroy something. As a bonus, it can even summon itself from the graveyard if you happen to discard it with a danger or trade-in. Being level 8 and Dark attribute, these cards work well with Allure of Darkness and trade-in, even triggering the Danger's destruction effects off the latter. We also run 1 Ogopogo since it's also a Dark and level 8, and when it's discarded, it allows you to thin your deck slightly. Anyway, speaking of, here are your draw cards. 3 Allure of Darkness, 3 Trade-in, and 3 Pot of Desires. Your deck is absolutely full of Dark level 8 monsters, so they'll be live most of the time. And Desires is just a no-brainer in this deck since it's a +1 in card advantage that also powers up your Gren Maju by 4000 attack. You really want to draw until you can resolve it. You then run 3 Dimensional Shifter, since it's a great hand trap for this deck going second, and the fact that the effect persists during your turn is actually beneficial for you. You then run 2 Radiant since it's a dark type, so it works well with your Lure of Darkness, and Small World since it allows you to search pretty much any other dark type. Depending on how threatening your opponent's monsters are, you'll either want to actually tribute something or just use it as discard fodder. You then run 3 Necroface and 1 Gold Sarcophagus. When banished, Necroface banishes 5 more from both players' decks, which is great for you and usually a pain for your opponent. Plus, if it hits another copy of itself, it'll banish 5 more. You can force this effect by banishing it straight from the deck with Gold Sarcophagus too. Also, an additional bonus to Necroface's banishes is that they end up being banished face up for once. This allows you to then use DDR to summon them back from the banish pile. It's also great for getting something like a Gizmekarachi back from the banish pile after using a Lure of Darkness on it, allowing you to use its destruction effect since you didn't need to special summon it with its own effect. If you want something specific, you can also just use Gold Sarcophagus to banish it and then summon it back with DDR. You can replace these if you want, but I think they're quite useful at giving you just that extra little bit of damage, at the cost of discarding a hard once per turn like a spare Small World or Desires. As your 40th card, run Link Apple. It's Upstart Goblin without giving your opponents life points, and it's fire type so it can be used as an emergency bridge for Gren Maju. For the extra deck, I won't dwell on it too long. Usually you'll just use Draglubion to OTK, or banish it all with Eater of Millions. It's basically just a bunch of decent rank 8 monsters, Zeus, and some links that could help you out. Use them if you need to, but otherwise they're just more fuel for the fire. Now for a few test hands. If you've been enjoying the video so far, make sure you give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more deck profiles like this in the future. Now since this is a going second deck, and one that relies heavily on draws at that, there's not too much point in me trying to show you specific combos or end boards, since it will depend completely on what your opponent has done. So instead, here's just a bunch of test hands that show you the potential damage you could do, all thanks to the banishing, summoning, and searching thanks to Small World. When playing, there's a few things that you should keep in mind. First is how early to use your search. You don't want to wait until everything is banished before using it, because you usually won't have any good targets left. But also you don't want to do it too early in case you end up drawing what you already searched. Secondly, prioritize what you discard or banish with a Lure of Darkness and Trade-In. Try sending the dangers with Trade-In if they still have something worth destroying on your opponent's field, otherwise banish them. For Orochi, you'll want to try and get it in the graveyard so that it can summon itself, unless you have DDR, in which case you want to banish it so you can then summon it back and use its second effect. For Small World, your priority is usually Gren Maju, then Eater of Millions, then Gizmekarachi. Gren Maju since it's your win condition, then Eater since it gives it the most extra power and also gives you some removal, and then finally Orochi since it banishes 8 and can sometimes pop a card. Don't hesitate to search something like a Danger if you can discard it with Trade-In though, or even search a Necroface if you want to banish it with the Lure of Darkness to trigger its effect. But really, it all boils down to just punching your opponents super hard. So what did you think? Will you be modifying your Gren Maju deck with the release of Burst of Destiny? Or do you have other plans for Small World? Let me know down in the comments. What's for sure is that it's a card full of potential, able to search any monster. So I'm sure other variants of decks that can make good use of it will pop up. In fact, I might make an Evil Twins deck profile that uses Small World to great effect. So make sure you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see that in the future. Thanks for watching!